Hello and welcome to Filling the Sink, a podcast from Catalan News. My name's Beth Cohen, and today we'll be finding out more about the Catalan donkey and the Feast of St. Anthony. St. Anthony, Catalonia's protector of animals, is honoured with a feast day on January the 17th every year, a day particularly special in many towns and neighbourhoods across the country. The festival's known as Els Tres Tombs, or the Three Laps in English, and it's celebrated in honour of both the animals and the saint. This year marks the 200th anniversary of the Tres Tombs festival in Barcelona. Joining me in the studio today to find out more is Cillian Shields. Hello, Cillian.
Hey Beth, how are you?
Good, thank you. Cillian, I know that you're a fellow animal lover, and I'm delighted to be doing this podcast with you.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me. It's one of those kind of peculiar little celebrations that they have in Catalonia every year, and it's always good to talk about those kind of customs.
Now, the festival honours the feast day of St. Anthony, which is on January the 17th. So that's this weekend.
Well, yeah, that was the day before this podcast is coming out, Saturday the 18th. And if you're listening to this the day that it's published, you might be in time to catch the big parade happening in Barcelona. That's taking place from 10:45 a.m. until 1:30 p.m. And it's happening all around the centre of town and particularly around the Sant Antoni neighbourhood. So very central. Streets like Paral·lel, Rocafort, Comte Borrell, Ronda de Sant Antoni, Plaça Universitat, and even going down La Rambla Boulevard itself. And if you're heading along, don't forget to bring your own pet, because people do at these things, and they're often blessed by the clergy. That's happening from 11 to 12.
So what kind of a parade is it? I mean, it sounds a bit like Noah's Ark.
Yeah, that's actually a good description for it, I suppose, yeah. So it's a parade not like carnival, not like anything like that you might be expecting. This is a celebration of the past, celebration of history, and a celebration of animals. So we're going to see a lot of donkeys, a lot of horses, mules, and a lot of vintage carts, a lot of historic trawlers, because this is also a celebration of history and a celebration of animals and all the work that they've done for society in past generations as well. Mm-hmm. It's also a celebration of the world of the traginer, and this is a word in Catalan which kind of translates to transporting. It's an old job, it's a job that doesn't exist anymore, but one that was fundamental to the lives of our ancestors. And it's quite interesting. So traginer is the Catalan word, but if you look at the English language Wikipedia page for it, it uses the Spanish word arriero. So that kind of implies that this whole idea of transporting goods on carts using horses, mules and donkeys was far more important, far more essential to life, maybe on the Iberian Peninsula, than what it was where we came from, for example.
Okay, and I know that the Feast of St. Anthony is the 17th of January, but do all the festivities happen on the same day, or are they spread out?
Oh, they're quite spread out. Some of the celebrations already happened last weekend, for example. Some are happening this weekend, and there's going to be things on throughout January and February. And while most towns celebrate the festival during this period, the last one will be held on May 3rd, Saturday, May 3rd, when Barcelona will host the 28th National Gathering of the Tres Tombs, bringing together enthusiasts from more than 70 towns. It's going to have on display 80 carts and carriages and around 200 horses in a day full of activities, events and music.
That sounds like really good fun. And where are the festivities happening? Is it in Barcelona or all over Catalonia?
All over Catalonia, definitely. It's happening in around 100 different towns. I mean, if you imagine, it's also a celebration of agricultural life, rural life. So, of course, it's going to be quite spread out all over the territory. But yeah, like I mentioned, it kind of kicked off last weekend, January 11th, with parades in Sant Andreu, with various vintage carriages on display. There was also last weekend the Festa dels Tonis in the town of Taradell, near Vic, in central Catalonia, where 30 animals were paraded. But it's interesting that these numbers are actually significantly down on previous years, because the tradition is kind of dying out a little bit. But that's quite interesting, because the town is instead trying to reinvent its festival, concentrating now on showcasing the various trades that operate in the town, things like basket weaving. They like to show the locals the whole process of where our food comes from, so chickpeas, bakers. Those were some of the examples given by the entity's president in an interview with our ACN colleagues last week. And Bals is also important to point out. That also took place last week with dancing and a big bonfire. And there were loads of historic vehicles used to transport spirits, liqueurs, passengers, even garbage at one time in the past. These were some of the carts that were exhibited this year in Bals.
So I gather it's the 200-year anniversary of the Tres Tombs tradition in Barcelona. Are there any specific events happening to mark that?
Yes, I mean, this is a big one that they've been planning for a while. All the way back in July last year is when the Federation of the Tres Tombs presented its bicentenary celebration plans. Actually, it's quite important to point out, I think. So 1825 is the 200th anniversary, not of the first time that this tradition was held, but rather the first time that it was documented, the first time that it had an entity officially organising it. But it's actually believed that the tradition is far older than that, even 500, possibly even 600 years old. But among the programme's highlights this year is the 28th National Gathering, like I mentioned, taking place in May in Barcelona. Another part of the special anniversary celebrations are the fact that the Tres Tombs tradition was brought into the King's Parade, which took place on January 5th, as it does every year, because here in Catalonia and in Spain, it's the three wise men, the three kings, that come on the night of January 5th to deliver presents for children up and down the land. Well, they landed in Barcelona on January 5th from the port, and they were brought using these Tres Tombs vintage carriages all the way up to the Ciutadella Park, where they started their parade. Apart from that, there's going to be loads of other events taking place. Of course, like the big parade in Barcelona, like I mentioned, that's happening January 18th, the day this is published. And plenty more talks, exhibitions, workshops taking place all over the country all year to celebrate and promote the history and culture of Tres Tombs. As well, interestingly, notably, there'll also be participation in the Millennium celebrations of the Montserrat Abbey.
To find out more, Cillian spoke to the president of the Federación Catalana dels Tres Tombs, Andreu Bernadàs, as well as Jordi Gispert, a representative of ADA, one of the biggest animals' rights organisations in Spain. Let's hear how they got on.
El cavall va ser molt important a les èpoques històriques, però...
The biggest challenge for Andreu Bernadàs and the Tres Tombs Federation of Catalonia is for people to know and understand the reality of the world of horses, an animal that has been hugely important to humanity since prehistoric times.
Va poder fer guerres, va poder guanyar-les, va poder perdre-les. Per això aquesta història no volem que es perdi.
We don't want this history to be lost.
The Tres Tombs aims to keep alive knowledge of a past world, one in which the traginer was an important element of society. The traginer, or arriero in Spanish, was a person who transported goods between markets and towns, usually using mules.
La història d'explicar el fet d'ensenyar un patrimoni propi, que existeix, que anem perdent. Ja.
Explaining this history is a way of teaching our heritage that we are slowly losing.
Perquè hi ha 600 cavalls de la majoria de raça pirenaica que viuen pels Tres Tombs.
Bernadàs says there are 600 Pyrenean horses in Catalonia that live solely to be part of the Tres Tombs traditions. The Federation President is very proud of the wide variety of traditions seen in different parts of the country.
Dir-te que per mi els 95 pobles són fantàstics.
Every town has its own peculiarity. The entire area of the Ebre Delta is important because it brings together lots of very different types of horses and carriages. The area surrounding Barcelona has a very different type of carriage to those used in Ebre area, but they all have their importance in the development of the farms there.
Tots tenen la seva importància i la seva bon desenvolupament dels Tres Tombs.
Without animals, humanity could not have developed as it has over the past centuries or even millennia. Organisers of Tres Tombs traditions say that it is a celebration of animals and everything they have given to humans.
The fact is that in that festivity, people use animals.
That's Jordi Gispert, a representative of ADA, one of the biggest animals' rights NGOs in Spain.
We have identified in recent years some animals that have not been treated or that perhaps suffer a little bit in those traditions, suffer in the way of that they are physically not at 100% or that they are stressed.
Gispert recognises that the tradition is hundreds of years old and says that society has changed its view on certain things, like how animals are used for humans' benefit. In recent years, administrations and festival organisers have put together animal welfare guidelines for Tres Tombs events.
This is a festivity, a tradition, as you say. Then is a tradition from 500 years. It's not just a recent tradition, but it's an old tradition. And we have evolved in a good way from then to now.
És la nostra guia. És la nostra guia precisament perquè tinc que explicar-te que nosaltres, quan vam accedir a la federació, El 2018 vam fer el nostre reglament de protocol de benestar animal.
Bernadàs makes the point that the guide is their own guide and that the Federation offered to work with the Catalan government on the document of recommendations.
Treballar conjuntament aquesta guia. Van rebre tots els inputs i totes les neguits.
The authorities received all the inputs, worries and wishes that we all had, and from that the guide was created, which is basically a guide of everything that all parties requested.
The carriages are usually empty, and it's just the structure that it appears to be heavy, but inside now is not heavy. But before it was like that.
The Tres Tombs Federation are on board with 95% of the final document signed, but have discrepancies of the last 5% over things like what weight can be carried.
No hi estem massa d'acord pel fet de...
We don't really agree because we got some very specific things like ornamentation. But it's fine, we accepted what they said.
Però bueno, els hem acceptat i així ens els portem.
But I think that we can still make it a little bit better because the recommendations are not mandatory. Our vision is that it must be a mandatory thing and that animals don't carry very heavy carriages and all the thing, but be supervised, be everything supervised.
En el món del cavall això es dona per fet de que no existeix.
Bernadàs acknowledges that different groups have different outlooks on life and won't agree on everything, but assures that animal abuse is out of the question in the Tres Tombs or in the keeping of the horses throughout the year when the festivals aren't held, and explains that the Federation has a series of disciplinary protocols to follow if ever an incident arose. That said, the Federation have never had to undertake these procedures.
En aquest cas, no hem tingut que fer mai aquest pas.
In Valls, one of the first towns to kick off their Tres Tombs events this year, organisers say the animal welfare protocol has been excellently incorporated into their routine, despite, as Tanya Guash admits, taking a couple of years to get used to the regulation.
Tenim una aplicació que comprava el xip del cavall i...
We have an app that checks the horse's microchip. It tells us if the horse is registered and all the documents are correct. Over time we have improved. The first year was very chaotic. Now it's all digitalized and we can know everything in a minute.
Ara està informatitzat i en un minut ho sabem tot.
Jordi Gispert believes traditions like the Tres Tombs can be carried out in new ways that still honour history but also ensure animal welfare.
But we must think as a mother society about those kind of celebrations that perhaps doesn't need animals. If we put like just figures or some other structures, perhaps we can do also that festivity without them, or we can do this just viewing them in the field or in some other landscape or some other place. Animals and environment are things that go together. The respect for animals, when we speak sometimes about climate change or animals like different things, no, it's the same. As a humanity, as people, we live in the Mother Earth world, and then we must respect.
Thank you, Cillian, for bringing us that report. So could you clarify what the Guide on Animal Welfare actually stipulates?
Yeah, sure. So the guide states that there should be one veterinarian present for every... Initially it was 52 animals at each festival, but now that's been reduced to every 42 animals. It also says that the routes should be less than 6 kilometres, so there's not overworking going on. And also that slippery surfaces should be avoided. All reasonable things, I think. Also, it's important to note that following this guide is actually voluntary. It's not compulsory. It's not mandatory.
Now, one of the animals which features frequently in the festivities, in the parades, is the Catalan donkey. This is a unique and beautiful breed native to Catalonia. Cillian, can you tell me a bit more?
Sure thing, yeah. So this is known as the ruc català in Catalan, the Catalan donkey, literally. And as well as an animal that has historically helped farmers here, it's also, in the 21st century, become a national symbol of Catalonia, which I think is pretty cool.
Wow. And can you tell me a bit more about the breed? I mean, what does it look like? What are its special characteristics?
It's big. It's a big, strong, strapping lad. It's around the size of a big horse, actually, normally measuring between 145 and 160 centimetres in height.
That's huge for a donkey. I mean, a horse is normally 15, 16 hands, which is 150, 160 centimetres at the withers. donkeys are usually much, much smaller, so I can see why it's so valued.
So important, so essential in the pre-industrial world, you know? It's also a very old breed of donkey. It was even mentioned in writings by the ancient Roman scholar Pliny the Elder, who noted their presence on the plain of Bic. So that's pretty cool, I think, to be in such an ancient text.
And you said that the ruc català has become a symbol of Catalonia.
Yes, it is, exactly. It's very commonly seen on many items like flags, like bumper stickers, T-shirts, hats, slippers also. If you look at the ruc català Wikipedia page in Catalan, you'll find an image of slippers there depicting the donkey draped in a Catalan senyera flag. So I like that little detail as well.
I will definitely be putting some ruc català slippers on my Christmas list for next year.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Do you know, some people have also actually framed this symbol of the donkey as sort of an antithesis to the symbol of the Spanish bull. So that's another aspect to it too.
And I gather that the numbers are in decline at the moment. Is the breed in danger of extinction?
Unfortunately, yes, is the answer to that. The animal has come to be seen as less useful in the lives of humans ever since industrialization and the arrival, obviously, of machinery and vehicles that can carry far more weight and transport them faster and further. It's obviously just kind of displaced the need. It's doing the job that these animals did for so long, and it's just better and safer, and they don't need to be stressed with this as well. But the result of industrialization and centuries of it is that over these decades, fewer and fewer of these animals have been bred, resulting now in the breed becoming endangered.
And given the declining numbers, a group of people in Western Catalonia are striving to maintain the breed. Let's hear more about it.
Soriguera is a small town in the north of Catalonia between Sort and La Seu d'Urgell, very close to Andorra. It has about 400 inhabitants, including Josep Lluís Piqué and Jesus Martín. They have a small farm with 17 Catalan donkeys and have been fighting to preserve this endangered species for more than 20 years.
El motivo principal es que son unos idealistas y unos romántics.
We are idealists and romantics, and we believe that this species deserves to be cared for after contributing so much for so many years to the rural world.
Aportan tant al món rural
Martín also feels that it's wrong to abandon animals when they can no longer be used for profit.
que en un sistema como el que tenéis ahora, en el que lo que es rentable se explota y lo que no se abandona,
In today's world, in which what is profitable is exploited and what is not is abandoned, the Catalan donkey is a species that has been forgotten about. Since it's no longer useful, it has been abandoned.
como ya no te utilidad, pues abandona.
Piqué explains that the two farmers care for these animals as a hobby.
El que passa és que, clar, arriba un moment que...
There comes a time when you see that there is no incentive to preserve this breed.
O sigui, que no hi ha un estímul, no?, per portar a terme aquesta conservació de la raça.
The pair are members of the Association for the Promotion of the Catalan Donkey Breed, and Piqué believes there should be more financial support for breeding this equine symbol of Catalonia.
Actualment, només hi ha 350 exemplars inscrits.
Currently, there are only 350 registered specimens. A breed must have at least 1,000 specimens to be genetically viable, and then the association only has 52 members, and most of them are elderly people who do it as a hobby. Most people have 1, 2 or 3 donkeys, and the government only offers grants for their maintenance if you have at least 5.
De persones en tenen 1, 2, 3 exemplars, i en canvi les ajudes de l'administració n'has de tindre com a mínim 5 exemplars per poder optar a les ajudes que dona l'administració per a races, per manteniment de races autòctones.
He also calls for looser legislation to be able to acquire such animals, as he says that facilitating a market for buying and selling them, and therefore allowing more people to have 5 and qualify for government aid, would lead to better conservation of the breed. Both farmers work alongside the platform Gratitud Pallars, which has opened a micro-sanctuary for the donkeys in Western Catalonia. Apadrina un Ruc, which is Catalan for Adopt a Donkey, is a new crowdfunding initiative promoted by Gratitud Pallars, which aims to increase knowledge about this endangered species and ultimately breed more donkeys. The initiative was born after an American couple travelled to the Pallars region in western Catalonia for a road trip on the Cinquè Llac route, the fifth lake, and discovered the Catalan donkey. At the end of their stay, they wanted to donate to preserve the species, but found that it was impossible. Núria Canal, of Gratitud Pallars, tells us about the campaign.
La microreserva del ruc català, que s'ha obert ara fa res.
The Catalan Donkey Sanctuary was opened recently, and here we foster the conservation of this native breed because it is a species that is in danger of extinction. It would be a shame because it really is a species that has fallen out of favor. But until a few years ago, it was very important for all the people of Catalonia, the people who worked in the fields.
I seria una pena perquè realment és una espècie que actualment ha caigut molt en desús, però fins fa uns anys era molt important per tota la gent de Catalunya, la gent que treballava al camp.
Promoters are asking for between 25 and €60 to keep the donkeys for a year or to help with a feeding station to prevent the grass from getting wet when it rains. The various sanctuaries that Gratitud Pallars run all have the aim of preserving nature in an area that does not have official protection. Almost all of their micro-sanctuaries are located outside of protected areas and come from initiatives from local people. Cesc Capdevila says that the Catalan donkey has important cultural and historical ties with the Pyrenees area.
Una de les utilitats que es feia era de traginer. Llavors s'utilitzava per portar les coses a mercat o entre els pobles.
The donkeys were used as porters to carry things between markets and towns. There are various routes, such as the Fifth Lake and other walks and excursions, that offer the experience of hiking for several days with a donkey. People learn by going with a donkey to understand that this animal, that has a reputation of being stupid, is not stupid at all, but is actually very, very intelligent, and you make an incredible bond with the animal. The family activities and the connection between the children and animals is amazing.
És brutal la connexió que hi ha entre els nens i nenes amb els animals, no?
The Catalan donkey may face an uncertain future, but for the time being remains in good hands thanks to the tireless efforts of people like Jesus, Josep, Núria and Cesc, and the kind donations of many generous people.
Thank you to our colleagues for bringing us that report. This week on Filling the Sink, we've been talking about the ruc català, the Catalan donkey, and how this iconic breed is in danger of extinction. We've also discussed the Feast of St. Anthony and the tradition of Els Tres Tombs as it celebrates its 200-year anniversary. That's almost all we have time for today, but before we go, it's time for our Catalan phrase of the week. Cillian, what do we have today?
Today we've got venir a tom.
Venir a tom. So what does tom mean?
Well, tom, the word tom, means something like twist. So the way that you would turn a key in a door, that would be referred to as un tom. It's also the way something twists when it's dropped. But it can also be a figurative twist, like an unexpected change in someone's life. And a completely different meaning for it can mean a short walk. So you could say, cada vespre sortim a fer un tom. Every evening we go out for a short walk.
Okay, and how would you use venir a tom?
So venir a tom means something slightly different. It's a verbal phrase. It means that something is appropriate, given the situation or scenario that one is in. So you could say be a tom que, and it would mean it makes sense that, or it's right that. Be a tom que tenim aquesta frase per aquesta podcast. It's right that we have this phrase for this podcast.
Awesome. That's all we have time for today. Thank you to Andreu Bernadàs, Jordi Gispert, Jesus Martín, Josep Luis Piqué, Núria Canal, and Cesc Capdevila for taking the time to talk to us. And of course, thank you to Cillian Shields for joining me here in the studio.
Thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoy the Tres Tombs festivities this weekend. Anything special planned?
Cheers, yeah. I've been before. I've been to the one in Vilanova i la Geltrú. That was quite interesting. And who knows, maybe I'll take a walk around Barcelona now this weekend and maybe take a look at it.
Oh, I'll be taking my cats to be blessed.
Oh, well, my dog is an atheist, so he's not coming.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to subscribe to Filling the Sink wherever you get your podcasts if you haven't done so already. We'll be back again next Saturday with another exciting episode of Filling the Sink. On behalf of all the team here at Catalan News, I'm Beth Cohen, wishing you a great weekend. Fins aviat. Adeu.